For the past week, I've been living with my childhood dream car, the new Aston Martin Vantage S. It's got to be one of the most beautiful cars on the road today from every angle. The design is just relentless. The near-perfect arches, hand-built twin-turbo V8 to its unmistakable British heritage. Outside of a Porsche Cayman GT4, this is the car I've always wanted to experience since I was a kid. But none of that is what actually surprised me the most over the week, because this is one of the very first production cars in the world with Apple's new CarPlay Ultra. And after a week of living with it, it completely changed my opinion of what in-car tech should be. So here's what it's actually like living with an Aston Martin and why I think Apple CarPlay Ultra might just be the future of cars. So this is my very first Aston Martin experience. I've never driven one, I've never even sat in one, and this car at nearly $500,000 Australian dollars is far beyond my tax bracket. So stepping into one felt memorable, and the first thing that struck out to me was that it's a car where design is the priority, not raw performance. Like the drive mode selector here isn't plastic, it's machined from a single piece of billet aluminium. The Aston Martin badge, it's handcrafted of chrome-plated brass and enamel. Even the S logo on the seats is hand-stitched using nearly 2,500 individual stitches. They're just small details that most will glance over, but together they make the entire experience feel very bespoke. And then you park the car, walk away, and look back. And it gets me every single time. The muscular rear is perfectly proportioned, the long bonnet and its curves, the overall understated luxury and razor sharp looks. I don't think I've ever walked around a car this many times before getting into it. It's one of those beautifully designed cars that non-car people will even stare at and take photos. But of course, none of this would even matter if it wasn't incredible to drive. And honestly, just listen to this. This car and how it handles and how it sounds is just ridiculous. Under the bonnet is a hand-built twin-turbo V8 producing 670 horsepower, launching this thing from 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds or 0 to 100 kilometers in 3.4 seconds. But the numbers, as usual, really don't tell the full story, because the moment you put your foot down, it's the drama, it's the cabin feel and the sense of occasion that really etches into your mind. Every drive feels like a unique memory in this Aston Martin. Interestingly, the engine is actually based on Mercedes-AMG's brilliant 4-litre twin-turbo V8, also found, as you probably know, in the G-Wagon and E63S. Some people think that it makes it less of an Aston Martin, but I'm curious what you think. Does it really matter where the engine is sourced from when the final experience feels uniquely Aston? But after living with it for a week, there was one part of the experience that genuinely surprised me, and that's what I'm about to show you. So this is CarPlay Ultra in an Aston Martin. I went into this week expecting CarPlay Ultra to be like an okay update, maybe some better graphics, a cleaner interface, the kind of thing that Apple announces and you go, cool, and just move on with your day. That's not what this is though. Apple CarPlay Ultra is transformative, and I realized that this was much more than a software update, because for over a decade, standard CarPlay that you probably use yourself typically lives on one screen. Everything else, your gauges, your climate, your drive modes, it lived on the manufacturer's own software, which meant that every time you wanted to change the temperature or check your speed, you left Apple's world and dropped into whatever the car maker built. But the moment I realized this wasn't just another CarPlay update was actually the impressive instrument cluster. With CarPlay Ultra, I could switch between classic Aston Martin dials, a more minimal power bar layout, have Apple Maps take over the entire display, bring up my music, trip information or widgets, and customize everything to exactly how I wanted it to be. So every time I got in the Vantage, my maps were already there, my music picked up exactly where I left it, my calendar was waiting for me, and everything I actually needed while driving was exactly where I expected it to be because I'm very used to this interface as an iPhone user. And CarPlay Ultra completely removes any, friction from the driving experience and the software. Everything finally feels like one cohesive system, and it means you spend less time interacting with the dashboard and the electronics here and more time simply enjoying the drive, especially in a car like this. And even with this Apple heavy user interface, Apple hasn't replaced Aston's identity, but they've clearly built the software around it. And I think that's why it actually works so well. The craftsmanship and emotion still come from Aston Martin. Apple just removes the little frustrations that normally come with modern car tech. So instead of competing with each other, it kind of feels like the two companies have built something better than either one could have done alone. Maybe Apple looked at Aston Martin and thought, yeah, let's not reinvent the car part. But let's be honest, nobody buys an Aston Martin because of the software. People buy an Aston Martin because they appreciate incredible design, craftsmanship, and engineering. And that obsession with the little details don't stop with their road cars. It carries right through to Formula One. In fact, the Vantage S has led the F1 grid as the official safety car. And this season, the Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team partnered with 8 Sleep, the team's official sleep technology partner. So very fittingly, 8 Sleep is sponsoring this part of today's video. The team uses the 8 Sleep pod to automatically regulate temperature throughout the night and help maximize sleep recovery because in Formula One, performance starts long before the lights go out on race day. Fernando Alonso said it best, performance is built on the details you don't see, and recovery is one of the most important. Now, obviously, I'm not an F1 driver, although after a week with a 670 horsepower Aston Martin, I was starting to feel like one. But between running a business, regularly traveling, and playing a lot of tennis, recovery generally matters to me too. So I've been using the 8 Sleep Pod for years, and it's become one of those products I barely think about anymore because it does its job every night, and I wake up more refreshed than I ever did before I used one. And I think that's actually the marker of really good technology. Much like CarPlay Ultra, the best tech isn't the technology you constantly notice, it's the tech that gets out of your way so you can enjoy your life and your experience. So if you're interested in transforming your sleep and checking out 8 Sleep, I'll leave a link below and use the code AEZ for up to $350 off. Now back to CarPlay Ultra. As much as I've been enjoying it, it's not perfect, and here's the negatives I've experienced. The biggest gripe is that it's not 100% seamless yet. While almost everything lives inside CarPlay Ultra, some of the deeper vehicle settings, things like configuring driver assistance features, ambient lighting, audio tuning, or service menus, stuff like that, it still takes you back into Aston Martin's own software. It's not something you'll use every day, but it does remind you that there are still two systems working together behind the scenes. I also noticed the occasional first generation quirk. Every now and then it would take like a couple of extra seconds to reconnect after restarting the car. And I'd occasionally see a slightly slower animation or transition. It's nothing major, it's not stopping me from enjoying it, but enough to remind me that this is version 1 of a completely new platform by Apple. And finally, because this is built obviously entirely around Apple's ecosystem, Android users miss out altogether. There's no Android Auto equivalent to CarPlay Ultra right now, so if you're not using an iPhone, you simply won't get this experience. That said, these all felt like relatively small compromises, and after a week, the biggest thing that I noticed wasn't the occasional bug or loading delay, it was just how quickly I stopped thinking about the software altogether and just enjoyed the car. Now, I know some of you are interested about actually what it's like living with a car like this, and it's interesting to say the least. This car has so much presence on the road. Everywhere I went, cars would just move out of the way on their own. People passing would give me a grin and sometimes give me a thumbs up. Kids would point and even scream. I've even seen couples in the rear view mirror pointing at the back of this car with big smiles on their faces. And then there's the odd car that wants to race you from time to time, and it's almost always a Volkswagen Golf. It's really special to see this car bring so much joy to not only myself and the passenger, but even people simply seeing the car from the outside. But admittedly, it also comes with a bit of anxiety. I've never checked for curbs so many times in my life. I've never become so emotionally invested in avoiding potholes, and every car park suddenly became a strategic decision. I found myself parking at the far end of the shopping center, and I suddenly understand why supercar owners park in another postcode. I also found myself taking the long way home. Morning coffee runs became the highlight of the day. Quick trips to the shops turned into 1-hour drives, and I suddenly became very generous about offering to pick things up. But what actually surprised me was how easy this car is to live with. You naturally expect a 670 horsepower sports car to be uncompromising, but this Vantage is a proper GT car. The seats are just incredibly comfortable, the boot's big enough for my tennis gear plus shopping, and visibility around town is manageable once you get used to it. It never felt like a car you could only enjoy on a weekend. On the highway in standard sports mode, it's genuinely properly relaxed. You could do hours in this thing without thinking twice, but rotate that aluminum dial into Sports Plus and it becomes a completely different animal. The exhaust opens up, the throttle sharpens, and suddenly a comfortable GT type car turns into something that rewards every single input on a back road. So a week later, the Aston Martin Vantage reminded me why people still dream about cars like this in the first place. Not because it's the fastest or the most aesthetic, those things can be subjective sometimes, but because it's a car with so much heritage. It makes you look forward to getting behind the wheel, because when I first got the keys for this car, I thought this week was going to be about driving my dream car, but by the end of it, I realized it was actually about something much bigger. The modern sports car isn't just defined by horsepower anymore. Most sports cars have an insane amount of horsepower, and EVs have unmatched acceleration. Instead, I think they're now defined by the entire ownership experience and by taste, from the engine notes and its design to its driving characteristics and even its onboard tech, because I don't think CarPlay Ultra made me love the Aston Martin more. It simply meant that there were fewer moments where tech pulled me out of the moment, out of the driving experience. And that's where it's really at. I was just looking for another excuse to jump in and go for a drive. But I'm curious, has CarPlay Ultra changed your mind in this video? And would you like to see it in other cars? Or would you still have rather the manufacturer's own software in your own car? Also, I wanted to say a quick thank you to 8 Sleep and Aston Martin for trusting me with one of the first 2026 Vantage S models. This genuinely was one of my first dream cars as early as I can remember. So it was a seriously special experience. And I really hoped you enjoyed seeing something a little different on this channel and coming on this driving experience with me.